Hi, this is Lara at Elliott Wave Gold with your daily analysis for Tuesday 10th of June, recording the video 5 past 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I was expecting downwards movement, and I was expecting it to show an increase in momentum. Movement above 1257.96 invalidated that idea. At that stage the alternate could have been correct, but the structure I had there was wrong. I've reanalysed recent sideways and upwards movement. It's a correction, and the correction is incomplete. I'm expecting at this stage another 1 or maybe 2 more days of sideways and slightly higher movement, mostly sideways, and when it's done we should see a breakout again to the downside. The main wave count and the alternate triangle idea at the end of this analysis both see primary wave 4 as an incomplete structure. At this stage it's shorter in duration than its counterpart primary 2, and with it going to continue for a few more weeks, it will end up reasonably in proportion with primary 2. That will give the wave count at the weekly chart level the right look. Primary wave 4 is either a combination or a triangle. Combinations are more common, so that's the main wave count. The first structure in the combination was a zigzag, so the second structure beginning here may be either a flat or a triangle. Flats are more common than triangles, so that's what we'll expect is most likely to happen. A flat would subdivide 3, 3, 5, and within it the B wave must reach a minimum 90% the length of the A wave at 1201.98 or below. At 1178, minute wave C would reach equality in length with minute wave A, and it's likely to end when price comes to touch the lower edge of this channel, or for C waves, sometimes for gold they can be strong, it could overshoot this trend line. If we do not see the minimum requirement for a flat correction met, then intermediate wave Y may also be a triangle. We'd still be expecting some downwards movement first anyway. Within minute wave C, if it's unfolding as a 5, which a C wave must, then its second wave correction can't move beyond the start of its first wave above 1293.47. This channel is going to be important for us over the next couple of days. Draw it from the start of A to the end of B, place a copy on A. If minuet wave 2 were to reach up that high, it should find strong resistance at this trend line, but at this stage I do not expect it to reach up that high. I'm expecting mostly sideways movement for the next 1 or maybe 2 days before this is done. When minor wave B is complete, then I would expect for this wave count a 5-wave structure up for minor wave C to complete the flat correction for intermediate wave Y. Minor C at that stage would be likely to make at least a slight new high beyond the end of A to avoid a truncation, and at this stage the expected end for intermediate wave Y would be about 1434. That's where intermediate wave W ended. The purpose of combinations is to move price sideways, so the second structure in the double normally ends around about the same level as the first. When I know where B has ended, I can then calculate a better target for C for you. I can't do that yet. Primary wave 4 may not move into primary wave 1 price territory above 1532.90. There are 2 possible structures for minor wave B down. It could be a single zigzag, A, B, C, the 9-wave triangle is the B wave, or, as per the alternate, it could be a double zigzag, W, X, Y. Either way, we're expecting more downwards movement at this stage. If it's a single zigzag, then minute wave C must subdivide as a 5-wave structure. When the second wave correction is over, the next movement down would be expected to be a 3rd wave, and so that should show a nice strong increase in downward momentum. If we do not see a nice strong increase in downward momentum for the next movement, then the alternate would be an excellent explanation. But the expected direction after this correction is over, a breakout to the downside, is exactly the same. The invalidation point also is exactly the same. Let's have a look at the structure of this correction on the hourly chart, where minuet 1 ends here, this point down here. This is the source of confusion. This piece of movement is really difficult to analyse. I might have it right now. I've given more detail on the next hourly chart, but overall I expect that we have A, some kind of B wave ending here, and a C wave for a flat correction over here. I would expect that that had been where the second wave correction had ended, but that's not what happened. We got some sideways movement which fits perfectly as a regular contracting triangle, so this may be an X wave, and minuet wave 2 is continuing as a double combination, most likely. This upwards movement subdivides best on the 5-minute chart as a 5-wave structure, so subminuet wave Y is most likely a zigzag, which makes minuet 2 a double combination rather than a double flat or a double zigzag, and with the first structure in the double being a flat correction, the second structure is a zigzag, we have a typical combination. Within the second corrective structure of the double, microwave B is probably not over, and it's probably going to move at least a bit lower. It can't move beyond the start of A, below 1252.43. When micro B is done, which should be soon, hopefully, then the C wave upwards should be probably relatively short, most likely to make at least a slight new high beyond the end of A to avoid a truncation, but not very likely to significantly move above that point, because double combinations have a purpose of moving price sideways. This one already has a fairly clear upward slope, but it's not very sharp, and we have a lot of sideways movement in here. So I would not expect the upward slope of this correction for the second wave to steepen. I would not expect too much more upward movement. The invalidation point at the hourly chart level is the same as the daily chart level for the same reason. I've drawn a best fit channel around this upward correction for the second wave. Once we have at least a slight new high above this point, I'll expect a trend change, and once we have a clear breach of this channel on the hourly chart, at that stage I will have some confidence that the second wave correction is finally over, and the third wave down has then begun. We will have price confirmation of a breakout at that stage with movement below 1241.16. At the daily chart level, this wave count is absolutely identical to the main wave count up to this point here, and then instead of ABC for minor B, it could be WXY, a double zigzag. I'm still considering this because of the duration of this movement. The structure in here is exactly the same. The invalidation point is the same. A B wave and a zigzag can't move beyond the start of the A wave. The expected direction breaking out to the downside is exactly the same. For this one, if it turns out to be a double zigzag, then I'd expect minute y to probably end when it comes to touch this lower trend line and not be as likely to overshoot this trend line. Within minute y, when I know where B has ended, I'll calculate a target for C downwards for you. I can't do that yet. The minimum requirement for a flat correction is the same because the bigger picture also is exactly the same, and we'd still be using this channel in exactly the same way. For this wave count, once we have a 535, if the next downward movement doesn't show a strong increase in momentum, this would explain it. And once that's done and we see a subsequent trend back to the upside, the main wave count would expect a 3, 4, 5, and this would expect C is over and the upward trend is now underway. At that point, this is the price point that differentiates the two wave counts. The main wave count would expect upwards movement to be a fourth wave correction, which can't move into first wave price territory, and so movement above this price point right here at that stage would tell us this alternate would be correct and it would invalidate the main wave count, but we won't have that clarity for a few weeks yet. But just so you know, there is a price point that gives us a clear distinction between the two, but we won't be seeing that yet. Let's look at this on the hourly chart with the end of the A wave here. Is this point down here? At the hourly chart level, this alternate, the subdivisions are the same, everything is exactly the same, no difference in what we expect to happen next. This chart just provides a little bit more detail for you. Zooming out at the daily chart level, instead of primary wave 4 being a combination, which I've labelled WXY, it could also be a huge triangle, A, B, C, D, E. For the triangle idea, we still need more downward movement. Intermediate wave D is very unlikely to be over here, the structure just doesn't fit. It's likely to continue lower to be between 75 and 85% the length of intermediate wave C. That's a common length I found for D waves within triangles. The biggest difference at this stage for this alternate idea is intermediate wave D does not have to reach a minimum 90% the length of intermediate C. There is no minimum requirement for downwards movement. We still expect more downwards movement anyway though. That's all for me today with your gold analysis, and I hope that all our members are having a fabulous day.